Hello everybody and welcome to the Athlete Podcast. Today I'm joined by Serena Vincent, who is a Team GB shot putter. Okay, it's a pleasure to have you, and we're going to go through your career as an athlete. We're going to talk about how you got into it, some maybe tips for getting into your sport. We're going to run over your training regimen, your nutrition, all of that, talk about the different competitions that you've been to. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with, how did you start? I know you said you're a cross-country runner, but it's certainly quite a sidestep going from running to throwing, right?
Yeah. So I started in my just cross-country club at my primary school. My librarian was the coach, I guess you could say. Yeah. She saw that I was good at it. She suggested that I then join an athletics club. We had a family friend that was in Portsmouth Athletics Club. So that's why I just went to Portsmouth Athletics Club. I probably could have gone to Southampton or Winchester or whatever, but that it just was natural for me to go there. And I've been there ever since. So when I was 8 years old, when I joined, we did a bit of everything. We tried a bit of sprint. She tried a bit of long distance, 600 meters. But as an 8-year-old, that's a very long way.
It's a long way for a 22-year-old like me as well. It's too much.
My 8-year-old self would run circles around me now. It would be embarrassing to watch. So, but yeah, so we tried everything. Did a long jump, and I just loved athletics in general. I thought it was just great fun. And then unfortunately I sustained a series of injuries on my feet between the ages of 8 and 12, which meant that I couldn't run anymore.
Okay.
I had a subclinical stress fracture, I had a slight tear in my Achilles, had a growth problem in my heel, all sorts of things, and both feet, you name it, I probably had it.
So it's like the universe was sort of...
Oh yeah, it was telling me not to run. Yeah. I decided that while I was recovering, I didn't want to stop athletics. Mm-hmm. So I tried javelin. It was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. Yeah. And again, when you're that young, they suggest for you to do anything and everything. Try all types of events. So that's how I then threw shot put. I wasn't very good at it whatsoever. And I probably enjoyed javelin more, but I stuck at both of them. When I had finished my recovery, I decided I actually hated running from then on. Okay. And I was like, no, don't want to do that anymore. So I continued with javelin and shot put for a few years. I did them side by side, and shot put just progressed more and more each year, and that's where I am today. But if I hadn't have got injured, I would never have tried shot put, probably.
It wouldn't have pushed you, would it?
Exactly. So it was the best bad thing to happen to me. It proves that there is a silver lining in everything. And just because something bad happens does not mean it's the end of the world. And for me, it's taken me across the globe competing for my country. So I can't really say
it's interesting that you went to javelin, because obviously you get a big run up. There's quite, half of the discipline is running. Yeah. When you think about it. So how did that sort of affect why you decided to choose shot put in the end?
No, not really. I think it wasn't that, for example, my injury didn't mean that I couldn't run at all. Yeah. It just meant I couldn't do long distances and the repetition and stuff like that. So yeah, that didn't affect me in any way, but I still love javelin. I still think it's really fun. But I just clicked more with shot put. I was good at javelin, don't get me wrong. I still competed, for my county and stuff like that for javelin. But shot put, just something clearly clicked, and it just progressed way more than I could even have imagined. And I'm 2 British records later, and here I am now. So.
And yet, throughout all that, when we had a little chat earlier, you said that 2 British records, you got countless medals, competed in so many different competitions that are everywhere, all over the world. Yeah. And yet, you have people saying that you were too small or not fit for the sport, or that your technique wasn't right, all these different... and not just, I don't want to dob anyone in, but not just maybe a coach giving criticism, but people that represent the sport at an official level that were telling you that you couldn't do it. Yeah. And that, as a child, I wouldn't want to hear that from anybody. No. Nobody would. And so how did you deal with that?
I think my first piece of criticism came when I was very young. I was only, I think, maybe 11 or 12 years old when my first coach dropped me as an athlete and suggested that I was too small, that I was never going to make it as a shot putter, and they dropped me as a result. So for a period of about 18 months, my dad actually coached me shot put, and I think because I have such a strong family relationship, I've got such a great support system around me. Yeah. It didn't affect me as much as it probably could have. I'm very stubborn in that way. I would love to just prove people wrong. I think it's great fun. Of course. So, and like I said, the support that my family had was like, you know what, no, like that's a that's a bunch of rubbish. Yeah. So I stuck at it, and I've never looked back ever since. But yeah, and then throughout my shot put career, I've had people in those high levels suggest to me that you're quite small, because I'm not built how I think the public probably think a shot putter will look like. Yeah, like if you asked an AI to give you an image of a shot putter, it would come out with like Miss Trunchbull. That's exactly. Yeah. And I don't look like that, so I understand why people were like, oh no, she's too small, but I was proving people wrong from the start. These people were telling me that, oh, you're too small, after I'd already broken a British record. I was like, you can't tell me that I'm too small when I've done something that no other person in Britain has ever done before. Yeah. So how they can turn around and tell me that, I'm not too sure. But it's something that I've experienced and I've got on with, and I'm just like, it's fine. Yeah, I'm just adding you to the list of people that I'm proving wrong. It doesn't phase me in any way anymore. It just drives me on more. Like, why would it not? So I just go with it.
The age-old quote, isn't it? That hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Absolutely.
But I think that this is something that a lot of, especially children that are invested in sports, they might compete regionally, county, school. I think that-that's a message that a lot of children get. You think of other sports like swimming, gymnastics. There is a specific frame, there's a specific build, there's height that you would expect. You'd expect a swimmer, they'd have a long arm span, they're very tall generally, a gymnast quite short, nimble, flexible, and so it's good to know that there's a story of success that breaks that mould of someone that's not traditionally fit for their sport, and then has gone in and they competed in around Europe, around Britain, around the places that they live. It's quite inspiring, really.
Yeah, it's something that I always want to put across to especially young athletes and young children, that if someone tells you that you are not the typical stereotype, that does not mean that you cannot do it. And I think it can be really damaging to tell someone that young, or at any age. You can't tell anyone, because you don't know, because they could just have that nick for it, like you just have no idea unless the person tries it. And even if you aren't the best at your sport, why does that mean that you can't do it? You shouldn't ever you should never do something for someone else. You're doing it for yourself. If you enjoy it, you do it. Don't let anyone else tell you that you can't do something. And I think that's such an important message to put across to young children, to young adults, whoever in any sport. It's super important that you do it for yourself, and if you enjoy it, then you crack on and you do it like that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Exactly. And on the topic of cracking on and just doing it, let's talk about being an athlete. Let's talk about what it looks like. First of all, we'll start with being an athlete in school, because that is difficult. Yeah. There's plenty of my friends, they were swimmers. Yeah. And God, I wouldn't wish that lifestyle on anybody. That's terrible. It's awful. I don't know why they even do it.
No, I know. 5 o'clock in the morning, no, thank you.
Exactly. We've got 24 hours in a day, and they want to get up at 4:30 in the morning and then swim for an hour and a half. It's unbelievable, to be honest. But in terms of like, you're an athlete training in school, you said you started around 12, which is about secondary school age. That's when your social circle expands and you sort of become a bit more independent. How do you deal with you just got so many more added responsibilities than everybody else that's in your circle? How do you deal with all of that?
I think you have to surround yourself with people who understand your situation, not through personal experience necessarily, just people who are accepting of what you do, and who are supportive of that. I've still got great friends that I've had since I was 11 and 12 years old, because those are the ones that have understood, and those are the ones that have supported me the entire way through. And in terms of secondary school, obviously, you've got your GCSEs, you've got all of that. It was difficult for me to balance it. It was. But my school was very supportive. I was very fortunate with the school that I went to in terms that they were very supportive of me. And in terms of when I took my GCSE subjects, I chose the subjects I wanted to do, but anything where it wasn't necessarily super important for me to do that homework in that particular time, they were like, okay, so you either have an extension or don't worry about that piece of homework, just don't do it. And then I took my maths GCSE a year early, and then so while I was in year 10, and then our group would then do additional maths or further. I can't remember which one it's called, but
is that in year 11?
Then in year 11 you take a separate exam. So rather than doing that, I removed maths because I have my GCSE already. So then I removed maths in my final year, and every time I had a maths lesson, I took it as a free period. And I catch up on homework. I'd catch up on revision. That's what I was able to do. I mean, that's a very unique situation to be put in. Not everyone can just take out a subject, because obviously at GCSE level in school, every period you have a lesson in. You don't often have free periods. It's not like college or university.
No, exactly.
So I was very fortunate in that situation. But they were super supportive and understanding of it, and that's what I did. I'm a very conscientious person anyway, so I wanted to do well in my exams anyway. It probably could have gone either way. I could have not paid attention to my studies or something like that, but for me, I still think that's a really important thing because my sports isn't going to be a lifelong career of mine, so you need something to fall back on. So for me, I wanted to do well in my exams, so that was also a no-brainer for me. I was still going to put the effort in and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But
so
even without maybe focusing, I don't want to discourage anyone from focusing on their education, but being an athlete, it does open a lot of different doors post-career.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things that you could go and do, from things to physio, nutrition, even coaching. Just boots on the ground, hands-on with the athletes, the rehabilitation part of it as well. Yeah. There's plenty of opportunities that can come from sport. Yeah. Even ones that you wouldn't even think of.
No.
So one of the athletes that we've got here, Jaden Paddock, he was a tumbler for Team GB, and he's sort of come to the end of his career, and he's extended his gymnastics career by becoming a stuntman. Oh, cool. Honestly, it's so cool. A door that you wouldn't even think would be there.
Absolutely.
Right, these are just two worlds that you wouldn't think would collide at all, really. But there's plenty of opportunities as a sports person. Yeah. But as you said, there's a lot of challenges around being a school age young person, and sort of balancing all these different responsibilities. But the people that understand and the people that don't, the divide between them, absolutely, I'm sure will show quite quickly.
Oh yeah, very quickly. You know who is going to remain in your circle and who isn't. Yeah. It's nothing against the people. They just don't understand. They don't understand why can you not go to that party that night? Well, because I have training or I have competition in the morning. And for me, I know that my athletics is going to be my career. Like, I know that, and I want that to happen. So I'm not going to risk my career on going out one night like this. It's just not. Yeah, exactly. It's just not for me. It doesn't make sense. It's not the same thing. And it doesn't mean that I never went out and I never went with my friends or anything like that. I always did that. Like, whenever I could do it, I did it. Or if it meant I came home at a couple hours early, that's what I did. And it doesn't stop you from being a kid. It doesn't stop you from having fun with your friends. You just make adjustments. Yeah, exactly. And that's all you need to do. And it can happen. I mean, it's not like swimmers who have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't need to do that. So mine was more like evening things that were slightly, or so it wasn't as hard as maybe some other sports potentially. But I think even with them, you learn, you understand your routine, and okay, actually I could do that then. And you understand, you work out your routine, and that's what you do.
And that's it with sports. So it's not just the surface level, the strength and the ability and the stamina, but then there's all these other things that revolve around it, like your resilience, your discipline, especially your discipline is huge, and your ability to know what you're aiming for and then be on target, if that makes sense, which obviously is a part of discipline, but it's the sort of drive that an athlete has that's honestly you wouldn't see it in anybody else, to be honest, because it's crazy. You're just doing the same thing in and out, and people say that doing the same thing over and over again makes you insane. So,
we all probably are, to be honest. There's a little bit of us.
It definitely wouldn't surprise me, I'll be honest. I've met enough of you guys now to know that you all might have a screw loose.
Yeah, probably.
So on the same sort of lines of discipline and resilience and things like that, it all ties in to nutrition and being there and showing up every single time. What can you tell us about that?
I think it's massively down to self-discipline. It's something that for me, I want to succeed in my sport, so I know what it takes therefore to do that, and for me those sacrifices are worth it, because being able to say you're an Olympic athlete or going somewhere and saying that you got a British record,
or
that's
showing the tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that for me, you can't always get that. It's not something that's easy. It's a very unique position to be in, and the fact that I have the potential to put myself in that situation, that's great for me, and I want to do everything I can to ensure that happens. So in terms of training, don't get me, it's obviously hard. Of course it is. Like, I come out of training after a heavy gym session and I can't walk for 4 days afterwards, and you sit there and go, wow, is it worth it? Like, after you can't like sit down onto the toilet seat because it hurts too much. But it is, because the minute you go out there and the minute you medal and or you win a competition and you hear the national anthem in the background and your flag is up there, you're on the TV screen, there's nothing like it. So it's worth all of it. It's worth getting up in the morning, going training, and when it's hard, pushing through more. Like, it just the whole thing is worth it for me. Just I think the pride I have to put my kit on, the pride I have getting my name called out when they introduce you to the crowd. It could be a crowd of 25,000 people. There's something about that is just,
it's exhilarating.
Exactly. So I love it.
Well, there's something about that. I mean, when you're there competing, this isn't something that people see. It's not. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not for a regular person.
No. A
lot of people probably aren't cut out for the sort of lifestyle that you live, but I've always sort of believed, from what I've heard from the athletes that have come in and spoken to us, that a lot of it is about showing up, which I think rings true in pretty much everything. So there's something to take from it, because it can be applied to just showing up to different lessons, even if you hate the lesson. Just showing up there and just trying to, even if you're paying attention maybe 60% of the time, that's still 60% more knowledge that you've absorbed than if you just didn't show up at all.
There's a benefit to absolutely everything. If you turn up to training, I was under the impression that we're all in the same situation, right? We all have situations where it's a shot putter. You come out of a gym session and you're just in so much pain. You might go, okay, I'm still going to turn up to my training session tomorrow. It's going to be really rubbish, and I probably not going to. But your direct competitor goes, I'm in too much pain today, I'm not going to train. It doesn't matter whether it was 1% more than what they've done or 50% more than what you've put yourself ahead of them already. Just based on mentality, the fact that you showed up there, and anything you do at a training session is beneficial. That's so for me. I always go, or training on Boxing Day, Christmas Eve, whatever. You may do that, and your competitor won't, because they want to eat Christmas dinner. Don't blame them.
I'd be a terrible competitor. Boxing Day, mulled wine.
Absolutely.
Gammon. Everything.
Love it.
Ferrero Rochers. Like, I'm not turning up until the 5th of January. Sorry, but this is half term.
So it's just it's that exact thing. You turn up when others won't. So there's a quote, I'm probably going to say it wrong, but it's along the lines of you doing something that others won't, so that tomorrow you do what others can't. And for me,
that sounds right.
Yeah, I think so. I think it sounded alright.
Right.
Either that or just made it up.
It's a great quote though, either way.
Yeah.
I mean, if I Google it and it doesn't show up, then I'll
You can put my name next to it.
Exactly. I'll attribute it to you.
Yeah.
And you can,
Someone said it somewhere, I know that.
No, it's a fantastic quote because it's true and it rings true of everything. It doesn't really matter whether, to be honest, look, slice of motivation. It doesn't really matter if you're training, if you're learning something, or if you're even just doing something that's maybe out of your depth. You know, you're not particularly comfortable socialising. Yeah. But if you show up and do it, and then continue to get more and more comfortable with that routine and how it feels to be doing that, then it will always get easier and you will always get better. Yeah. You can't go backwards if you show up and just do it. No matter how little, no matter how much you do it, you will always get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so anyway, competitions. It's a good segue that, but competitions. Yeah. Let's talk about the European Championships because that is, to me, huge. Yeah. The entirety of Europe. It's a huge talent pool of athletes that have been picked, hand selected by each country to be sent there. Are you a fan of competing and being at those huge competitions? Do you find it nervy or?
Yeah, I mean, I always consider myself a championship performer. Yeah. I absolutely love it when I'm on an international stage and, like I said, I've got my kit on and my name is being called out over the tannoy. I love that. Many of my internationals that I've gone to, I've PB'd at just because I love the adrenaline. I love the fact that there are thousands of people in the stadium. Even when they're not cheering for you, they might not even be watching you, but the sound of it, I absolutely love it. There is something about it.
Something very distracting.
Yeah. I think it's like no other really. So yeah, I absolutely love doing it. Europe is a very strong competition, especially in the throws and especially in shot put. Some of the best people that I'm going to compete at in the world are European. I absolutely love it. But the thing that I love most about it is the fact that we all know each other. We've all grown up. We've all been under 18s together. Now we're seniors. So I've gone through. There are a handful of girls that I've competed with since I was 15 years old, and now we're all 22, 23, whatever. Yeah. So every time you go to these competitions, you say hi and you just catch up with people and
mingle.
And we're genuine friends. Outside of competition, we are genuine friends, and you go up to them and you give them a hug, and the minute the competition's finished, you all have a photo with each other afterwards, and you all give each other a hug. You all say well done, and that's what I really like, and I love being able to travel. And why would I know someone from the Netherlands? Why would I know someone from Finland? Like randomly, you know? And now I consider these people friends because I'm competing with them maybe like once every month or something like that throughout the season. And then when you go to European Championships and everyone comes together, then you're like, okay, let's do it, you know? And throughout the season, one of you might have won one of them, one of you might have won the other. And that's what's so great about it, is that even when you get beaten or you beat someone, at the end of it, there's still that camaraderie, and that's what's so great about it. I know I know sprinters in particular they're very competitive. Obviously we're all competitive, but they don't talk to each other, you know. They're quite like, you know, it's I think it's probably not everyone, but I know a lot of it is a bit like that. It's a bit standoffish, you know. You gotta like, you know, show yourself, you know. Whereas I know pole vault is the same, shot put is the same, heptathlon is like that.
They're all very close.
Yeah, all really close. Well, no, they're really close. We're really good friends, but it's some of the sprinters and stuff are actually it's a little bit more like standoffish, and you want to like not show a side, you know. But that's what I love about it. I just think it's so much fun being able to come out and be like, you know what, like I didn't do very well this week, but you did really well, so hats off to you, and vice versa. That's what's really important. Being able to be friends with people and understand that you're all in the same boat, you're all doing the exact same thing.
Exactly, you've all
support
got this
each other.
Mutual understanding that I assume the people in your immediate life, when you're back home training and whatnot, they don't really have that understanding of what your life is like. But when you're all there, you've all sort of been on the same path, and you know exactly what each other's struggles are. Yeah. And it's probably really easy to empathise for them. It just makes the connection really, really easy.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess, yeah. So you said that you like nerves. I'm a big fan of nerves.
Absolutely love them.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because if you weren't nervous, you wouldn't really.
Yeah.
Do you really care that much if you're not nervous?
That's what I always say. I say that if you have nerves, it means you care, and that's a good thing.
Exactly. So, are you big on music when you're competing, or well, not competing, but in the run up, on the day in the morning? Yeah.
So I think lots of people have their superstitions. Lots of people have to wear a certain pair of socks. For me, I know lots of people have that. Yeah, weird things. But for me, I like to have no superstitions, because what if I get to a competition and something goes wrong and then I can't wear those pair of socks, like I don't want to put myself in that position. So in terms of music, I mean, when I can, I'm gonna warm up with music. Of course I am, like, get yourself in the head game. Sometimes though it's a bit weird, officials will come up to me like, you can't wear headphones, which is a bit weird because you can but sometimes they'll take it away from you, and if that was such a big deal for me, that could throw you off your entire competition. And for me,
you wouldn't
I don't want to throw my competition away just because I wasn't allowed to listen to music. Do you know what I mean? So I totally get it. Some people have to listen to certain songs, certain time, whatever, and I get that. But for me, if I can, I will. Obviously,
it drowns out all the
you just put yourself into the zone, and like that's what I do. But I tend to listen to my music when I go into warm up. Not in your call room, because you're not allowed. That's where your phone gets taken away from you. That's where your like electronics and stuff that gets taken away. So during your warm up period, that's when I tend to listen to my music, but I won't ever rely on it.
I see.
That's just a personal thing.
I mean, to be honest, it seems like the most straightforward way to look at it, to be honest. I wouldn't want to. I mean, imagine if you were superstitious about this pair of socks.
Exactly.
Bit odd, but we'll go with it. You're superstitious about this pair of socks, and then you go and you, for instance, maybe break a finger as you're competing, and then you go home and you think, I broke my finger while I was wearing this pair of lucky socks, and this is my whole house of cards is falling over now, and what do? I don't know what to believe in. And so I can understand where you're coming from. Going back to the broken finger, you mentioned adrenaline before, and that it sort of takes away everything, being in the crowd and having people cheering, and there's could be 25,000 people watching, and then even more watching by the television or on a stream or something like that. You like the adrenaline so much that you actually competed with a broken finger. And not just that, but set a personal best too. How did that go? When did you? So
it was the under 23 European Championships in last year, 2023, and I just did I think it was my third round throw, and I threw it, and it just came off slightly funny, as it does in training, competition, whatever. It's so common for that to happen. And it just came off funny, and it did really hurt. And I was like, oh, that was a bit more painful than it normally is. So I was like, that's right. So I just went into my bag, taped it up. I was like, it's fine, get on with it. Did my next round throw. I think I PB'd on that one, and then it just started to get like more and more painful, and I was like, oh dear. So I walked over to my dad, who's still my coach, and I sarcastically went up to him and I laughed at it, and I was like, I think I broke my finger. Like, I was like, it really hurts. Like, I genuinely think it's broken. And my dad laughed it off and was like, you're fine, keep taping it up. We'll just crack on.
More tape.
I was doing well in the competition. Both of our moves are very light. Thought nothing of it. Threw another PB. The competition finished. I did my lap of honour, had my flag. It was great fun. And then I went through the mix zone, which is where you talk to your cameras, you talk to media, blah blah blah. And then as I just exited my the mix zone, the anti-doping came up to me and was like, Serena, we need to take you for your drugs test, which is perfectly normal. And I was like, yeah, no worries. And before you go into anti-doping, you got to sign your name. Is very particular. You got to sign a piece of paper. So they handed me a pen. I could not hold that pen. It was so painful, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I've done something, because I now can't actually hold a pen. So I very roughly changed my writing completely and to sign my name holding a pen in a way that I've never done before. And it was that point where I was like, okay, I think I've done something to my finger. I went to the Team GB doctor and I was like, I think I've done something to me. He poked and prodded it. He was like, does this hurt? And I was like, yes. And I had like virtually no movement in the top tip of my finger. So he was like, yeah, you've done, he's like, it's probably like ligament or tendon or something like that. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. Again, it's happened before. Didn't think too much of it. Went back home, blah blah blah. We taped up my finger from the hotel, and I was like, no, this is like really bad. So then they had to then buddy tape it. So now my index finger is attached to my middle finger. Yeah, and you cannot. Yeah, I hate it. You can't. You don't realise just how much you use your individual fingers until you can't use them. And that was awful. I couldn't put deodorant on properly because normally you use your index finger for deodorant. Now I having to use my thumb. Couldn't hold a toothbrush properly. Dressing yourself was difficult. Like, you know, you can't put like all of these things where like you think that is so ordinary, and then without the use of your finger you realise, oh, it's actually really difficult. And anyway, so went back home after the competition and stuff, and I still trained. Even, like, tiny the whole thing. The whole thing was so hard. Yeah. And went back home, started training again, and I was like, no, like this is really painful when I'm throwing, and obviously my distances have massively dropped because I can't throw a shot put for 4 kilo shot put on a broken finger. And I was like, no, this is not normal. I went to a competition though, because I had one in Portugal 3 weeks after the European Championships. I still went to the competition. And I threw. I was meant to compete twice, one on one day and one on the other. First competition, I had to pull out. I've never had to pull out of a competition before, ever. I've never done it. But it was so painful. I was like, no, okay. At that point, I probably should have realised that 3 weeks ago after but I was like, nah, it's just a finger, isn't it? Like, who cares? And I was like, no. So I had to pull out of the competition. That was that. Yeah. I then decided to get it scanned, like a month later. And then I'd realised that basically what you'd done, I'd essentially broken my finger. So I chipped so my ligament had pulled and it had chipped a piece of bone off my finger. Fantastic. Yep, so I had like a lump on the side of my, on the tip of my finger where that was literally the piece of bone that had been chipped off, and it's like essentially floating in your finger. So that's the point where I was like, okay, right. And that's, and then that's when like the rehab kicked in, but luckily that was the end of my season. It was maybe it's like one competition early, but so at that point I was like, okay, that's not ideal. We realised what it was, so he was like, no, you absolutely cannot put any pressure on that. You cannot throw for at least 8 weeks, maybe 10. He's like, you just can't do it. And I was like, oh really? Like, because considering I was like throwing on it anyway.
And you've got to do all those boring rehab exercises.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what I had to do in those rehab exercises? I was doing like, but you couldn't do anything until that first 8 to 10 weeks because it was absolutely nothing could be touched it. And then you had to start doing like bicep curls with your finger. Do you know how embarrassing that is? With a little rubber band. Oh, just a normal rubber band, and you're going like this and like bicep curling. Well. And it's hard. I was like, oh my gosh. So I did that, and it took me 4 months to get from no weight bearing to throwing a 4 kilo shot put again. And that was so mentally difficult because in my head it is just a finger. Like, why is this such a big deal? But obviously as a shot putter, a finger's like the most important part of your throw. So it just, and for me it just felt like it was taking forever, and in my head I just could not justify why a tiny little thing that happened in the tip of my finger meant that I couldn't train properly. Like, it was so mentally difficult, and I was like, oh, I can't, like, it's just so annoying. But then my physio helped me put it into perspective and was like, Serena, if you had the exact same injury in your ankle or in your foot, you'd be in a boot and on crutches. And at that point you're like, okay, yeah, that's a significant injury, I'll accept it. But because it was in my finger, it was like I wasn't accepting it. So it was at that point where I was like, oh, okay, actually putting it into perspective, it is quite a bad injury for what it is, you know. So yeah, it was mentally really tough to get through, but I've obviously got over it, and I, after 4 months, went back to throwing, and and I opened up the season as normal this season, and it was, and you know, I've recovered and it's absolutely fine. But that period where it was happening was actually just really challenging. But
and you were quite successful this season at the British champs, right?
Yeah. So I medalled both the indoor and outdoor British championships as a senior, silver both of them.
Is that your first full senior?
No, so I've competed at the senior champs for numerous years now, but this is my first season as a senior now.
I'm with you.
This was my first time, and I think silver's my best positioning. Silver's my best positioning at the champs, so that was great to be able to do that. And I finished my season at 17.78 this season, which was massive. Like, you know, for me, I was absolutely chuffed with that. And yeah, I've been all over Europe this season, just competing on the European circuit with the senior athletes this time as well, so across Europe, which is just great. It's so much fun. You get to know the different types of competitions. I went to Greece this year, I went to Spain, I went to Germany, you know, all sorts of things, and that's really great fun. The travel aspect of it is, I love it. So yeah, that's what I did this season. I absolutely loved it. But so that's how I ended my season.
Have you got any sentiments or messages that you would maybe bake into somebody that's trying to get into sports or are looking for a hobby to do on the side?
I think if you join any sport, for, you know, my background is athletics, if you join athletics, try everything. Try absolutely everything. There are many different disciplines in athletics, and you might come across the weird and wonderful one that you just click with. Because I think everyone goes in and goes, I want to be a sprinter, I want to be a 100-meter runner. Like, that's, you know, that's what people think. That's what Joe Blogs on the street is. If you say pick an athletics discipline, they're probably going to say 100 meters. They might say 800, something like that.
But then for every discipline, it's almost like because you think of you've got your sprinting, your jumping, your throwing. Those are like the main key pillars of it. But then you sort of open it up. And you say you look at throwing. Throwing. We'll stick with throwing. So you look at throwing, you've got the shot put, you've also got the hammer throw, and then also the javelin. And then if you think about jumping, there's long jump, which everybody would sort of default to usually, but then there's triple jump, and there's high jump, and there's, I think you could probably get pole vault as well, couldn't you? Exactly. So it's not just you're not there's it's like a big toy box, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Athletics, track, field, there's so much to look at, and
and that's what's important. You have to try everything, because you might just click with one thing. And so that's what I would say. I was like, and these people, all these coaches are so lovely. You know, it doesn't matter what age you try, just go in, and they're there to support you. That's the whole point of these grassroots sports and stuff like that, is that they're there to get you to try it. And if you enjoy it and you want to do it, then do it. Then go give it a go. I was so nervous when I joined my athletics club, but you make lifelong friends at your sport, you know. So just give it a go. That's all I can say really, is that if you enjoy it, go ahead and do it, but try everything. Be really open-minded and think, okay, I really like sprinting, but you might think, oh, I want to be a 100-meter runner, but actually you might be a really good 400-meter runner, you know. Like, just try.
Or 2,000 meters.
It could be like
country marathon even, and then you open it up even more. You've got the heptathlon, the triathlon.
And if you're good at everything, go ahead and do a like I said, heptathlon, decathlon, and a heptathlon. Do a bit of everything. Why not?
That seems like the perfect place to end it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for everybody who's come along listening, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.